Hello everyone and welcome to an amazing game from day 2 of the Freestyle Chess Grand Slam Weissenhaus tournament. It is Magnus Carlsen versus Vincent Keymer. This is the semifinals and Vincent won game 1. So now Magnus has to win on demand in order to force tiebreaks. And the funny thing is Vincent was already in a similar situation in 2023 FIDE World Cup where he defeated Magnus in the first game of the Classical, and then Magnus won on demand in game 2 and then won the tiebreaker. And that, I'm sure that's a very painful memory for Vincent, and he would hate it if that was to repeat again. However, Magnus has the white pieces, and he would love it if that was to happen again. So let's see what happened here. For those of you who haven't seen what happened, you will have a great time. Now let's check it out. Magnus with white opened with pawn to f4. And okay, it's a pretty crazy position. The bishops are on the king side, the heavy artillery is on the queen side. The king on c1, so you will have to clear at least queen and knight if you are to castle queen side, and you will have to, clear pretty much everything if you are to castle king side. And okay, let's see what happens. The idea is you're gonna play f4, most likely g3, and that will open up your bishop pair, and probably Vincent will do the same. So he plays pawn to f5, mimicking Magnus. Pawn to c3. This will come in very handy as it will limit the power of the dark square bishop on h8. Pawn to g6, and now Magnus strikes in the center with pawn to d4. Vincent capitalizes on this by playing pawn to c5. By playing both c4 and d4, Magnus created some very nice targets for Vincent. This is now a target, and also the pawn on f4 is undefended, and it will fall with check. So Magnus defends the f4 pawn, and Vincent takes this opportunity to trade down a little bit. And of course, I'm not saying that Vincent is playing for a draw, but it always helps that a draw is enough for him to win the match. So he is very much looking forward to trading down and creating as simple a position as possible. We have bishop captures on d4, and now pawn to e5, opening up the rook and further trading down. We have f captures, bishop captures on e5, and queen to d3. We have knight to c6, putting more pressure on the bishop, and now bishop to c5, Magnus avoiding the trade. We have pawn to f4, and now knight to f2. You don't really have to react as, okay, you are defending the g3 square twice. Queen to c7, now freeing up the queen. You are now able to castle queenside if you so wish it, and the g captures on f4. Instead of recapturing right away with check, Vincent throws in a nice Zwischenzug, knight to e6, attacking the bishop. And while Magnus could now trade bishops, it doesn't look like much. Vincent's position is just brilliant here. So after knight e6, Magnus wants to keep the material on the board, plays knight to a3, and Vincent goes for knight captures on f4. We have queen back to c2, and now knight to a5 with ideas of knight coming to c4. It is nicely supported by the bishop and by the queen on c7. We have knight to d2, and now knight to d5 by Vincent. And I think here we see first glimpses of Vincent maybe not playing for a win. Here castles queenside, king b8, and then maybe d5. Doesn't look like a terrible way to play for advantage, or maybe just pawn to d5 right away. But Vincent goes knight to d5 first, also knight to e3, looks like an excellent square, as the rook will also help support that. Now Magnus goes knight to g4, attacks the bishop while defending the e3 square, bishop back to g7, and now castles queenside. Okay, so what is Vincent to do? He goes knight back to b6, now opting for that c4 square, and pawn to b3. Magnus not allowing that. We have castles queenside, and now Magnus rushes forward with pawn to e4. He gives up the c3 pawn, but he will try to make something out of it. Queen captures on c3, queen captures, we have bishop captures on c3, and now pawn to e5. And it's a pretty interesting situation. Probably, h5 is what you should do here. Something like h5, knight f6, and rook to e6, and you claim that you have a very nice position. But after pawn to e5, Vincent played pawn to d5, and this is such a crazy position where Magnus has now the opportunity to really take over the initiative, but it's a move that I don't think anyone finds. Like, as I like to say, unless you have the soul of silicon, you're not finding this one. But in case you haven't seen the game, have at it. Try to find a move that even Magnus could not find, while I give you a couple of seconds. So the move in question is king to c2. Look at this. and it's a hard move to even consider, especially with, you know, this being a never before seen position with little time on the clock. You know, well, just being in the semifinals of such an event. The problem is it's hard to find you know, the fault behind pawn to d4. It looks like such an amazing move. The problem is it loses by force. Knight f6 goes after the rook. Okay, you move the rook, nothing spectacular. But then bishop g2 happens, and look at this, bishop h3, and black will lose material. So you're going to move the king to b8, and now you play bishop to d6 check, and after the king moves, you've well, you've cornered the rook. Now you play bishop to h3, and there is no square for that rook to go to, as the two bishops and the knight cover everything. So black will have to lose material here. And that is that's not the best for black to play. But you first, you know, you really ask yourself what's wrong with d4, and only after you see that you will, okay, probably play, as you cannot go here, this is covered, you will capture on d2, and after rook captures, well, now you have the bishop pair in such a position where it's a completely open board, and you have the passed e pawn that will, I mean, that will allow you to play for the win. So this was a great opportunity for Magnus, but he missed it. But I mean, who finds king to c2? I don't think so. So Magnus played e captures on d6, en passant, and now bishop to e6, putting pressure on the knight first, rook to g1, and now bishop to f5. And yes, it is very, very hard to say no to having a beautiful passed pawn like this. But Vincent's counterplay is evident here. We have knight to h6 attacking the bishop, knight to c6, and now knight captures on f5. We have g captures and knight to c4, offering a trade of knights. Knight captures, we have b captures, and rook to e2. Vincent says, I'm very happy with my position here. I'm controlling the second rank. My bishop is very strong here. The knight can come into the game. How are you ever pushing this for more than a draw? Magnus plays rook g2. We have rook captures, bishop captures, and now bishop to b4, offering a trade. Bishop captures, knight captures, and now pawn to a3, attacking the knight. We have knight back to c6, and now bishop to h3. And here Vincent realized that he messed up. The pawn cannot move, the king is still on c8, and then rook to f8 action will be met with rook to d5, and now the pawn will fall. Rook captures on c5 is coming, then Magnus will be up a pawn, and especially if Vincent trades rooks, then it will be, you know, just a bishop versus a knight, a pawn up on an open board. This will be very, very hard to defend. So that is not the way to go. With 4 minutes on the clock, Vincent spends almost all of his time, plays knight to a5. He's now below the 1 minute mark. And he says, all right, what do you play here? And here Magnus misses his opportunity. He plays bishop captures on f5 with check, as with anyone. But after king to b8, he misses the move. What would you play here? Your c5, c4 pawn is hanging. Would you advance it or would you defend it? What would you do? Well, Magnus did not play the correct c5. He played bishop to e6. And c5 really, I mean, it looks okay. The bishop is covering c8, so you're not worried about rook to c8. But it just falls to knight b3 check. I mean, you're going to lose that pawn. But that's the whole point. You have to lose that pawn, and you have to get the knight to an unfavorable square, because then you can capture on h7, and you don't lose the d pawn. The e4 square is covered by the bishop, and of course you cannot go here. The king cannot go to c7, so you cannot attack this pawn. And now this pawn starts marching forward. That was the way to go for Magnus. But after king b8, he played bishop to e6, which seems like it controls absolutely everything. But now Vincent says, nope, not so fast. Pawn to b6. And now how are you stopping knight b7 and just rook captures? There's no way to stop that. King to c2, Magnus starts bringing his king into the game. Knight b7. Pawn to d7, and now the only move that wins the pawn, but of course Vincent sees it. King to c7, rook to f1, and now knight to c5. Attacking the bishop, we have bishop to h3, and now knight captures on d7. Grabbing that pawn, equal material, and now Magnus can no longer play for the win. But he is Magnus, he can always play for the win. Let's see what happens. We have rook to f7, pinning the knight. King to d6 unpinning, and now rook captures on h7. He's up again up a pawn. Knight to f6. We have rook to f7 attacking the knight, and king e5 defending. We have bishop to f1 guarding the pawn here. So if rook attacks, you can just nicely move and you don't run into some b5 action. Pawn to a5 by Vincent. played very hastily, but you know, they're playing an increment here. We have rook to e7 check, king to d4, another incredibly precise move by Vincent, and rook to e6, going after the knight and the pawn, knight to g4, and now bishop to e2. Of course, advancing the pawn would run into this very unfortunate fork, so if you don't want to lose your bishop, or you know, give up the exchange, you have to do something about that. So bishop to e2, knight to e3 check. You could also grab the pawn, but Vincent, of course, will not blunder in this stage of the game. If you do this, you don't even have to play rook to h6 right away. You can first grab the pawn, and this is still a terrible, terrible threat. And okay, you can probably play something like king e3, but then rook e6 check, and if you go king f2, c5, it's already a winning position for white. So after this bishop to e2 move, we have knight to e3. This comes with check, king to b3, and now rook to h8. We have rook captures on b6, and now rook to h7. Pawn to h4. Magnus starts advancing his h-pawn, but there was, you know, no way to defend it, so he might as well push it. Rook captures on h4, and now rook to c6, defending the pawn. And here Magnus is still up a pawn, but there is no way to play this for a win anymore. Rook to h2, rook to d6 with check, king to c5, and now rook to d2, defending the bishop. However, Vincent finds it. Knight captures on c4, seals the deal. It's an instant draw, and there's nothing Magnus can do about it. If bishop captures, he loses the rook, so he plays rook to c2, puts pressure on the knight, and it seems like Vincent blundered the knight, but just rook to h3 check, and he was in this position on move 50 that Magnus Carlsen agreed to a draw, as there is nothing more to be done here. So it is a great day for Germany. I don't know the last time Germany had such a great day where a top German grandmaster defeats world #1 in Germany. I mean, that I have no idea literally when Germany had such a great day the last time, but this one is to be remembered. And yeah, if you go king a3, you just get checkmated, so you're not playing that. And if you go back like king a2, you're going to lose the a-pawn, and then you go further back, and then rook a4, the knight is nicely defended. There's nothing to do. If anything, it's still Vincent pushing for the win. So, but Vincent doesn't care. He just eliminated Magnus Carlsen in the semifinals of his own tournament, basically. So yeah, Magnus will be very sad with this one. I'm sure he was looking very much forward to winning this one, as he is, you know, as I've heard, no longer playing any FIDE tournaments. But yeah, not going to happen. It is Vincent in the finals, and I'm not going to spoil who he's playing against, as I will cover that match as well. Sindaro versus Fabiano Caruana. They're, you know, really brawling it out. They really can't beat each other, and it will take many, many games for us to have a winner. So I will keep you guys informed. Maybe the game is already finished, so you guys know, but yeah, I'll keep you guys informed. So yeah, not a repetition from the 2023 World Cup. Even though it started similarly, Magnus almost got back into the match, but he gave Vincent that one chance here after king to b8 was played. He asked this beautiful question with knight to a5. What do you do? Do you play c5 or do you go bishop to e6? Magnus chose the worst continuation, and that was it. Vincent did not falter after that. And yeah, I mean, Vincent has been playing brilliantly against Alireza, against Magnus. He's literally an engine this tournament. He gave that, okay, Magnus that one chance. I'm not really sure it was you know, mathematically a lost position. It was a position where most people would lose against Magnus, I would say. But still, you know, he didn't give him much. And in the end, Magnus couldn't take advantage of that. So yeah, brilliant play by Vincent. Very happy to see him in the finals, and very happy to see how all this ends up. Yeah, it's going to be a great event. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to thank Andreas Rosenthal, David Bacon, Andrew Steinel, Yuri Rolchenko, and Nathaniel Devlin for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions, but mostly covering this event until it finishes. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.